Last time we spoke about brainstorming, and now we're going to talk a bit about how to start building. So now probably you've got some ideas. Maybe you have like a rough idea of what you want to make. Maybe you even have a few game rules or like an inspirational game that you want to base your game on. And then it's time to actually start building. And this is can be quite a difficult part because there's so many options when you just start out. So everything is possible. You don't know how the game is being played, how many players, what time you're aiming for. So you don't know anything yet except for this vague idea. And one way that people will do this is they will try to write down all the rules from the start and try to think of everything at the start of the design process. I've tried this as well a few times. It works if you have like a month or 2 months time. If you have just a weekend, there's no time for that. So what I would advise to do is to start playing as soon as possible. And how you do that is that you would need some game parts. You would need some parts to play around with. If you have this vague idea, you could make a list of the type of game parts you need. So do you need maybe coins? Do you have a currency in there? Or do you need a game board? Do you need player tokens? Things like that. And when you have this list, it doesn't need to be complete, just like the basic stuff that you need to start playing. You find or create game parts, and include find as well, because you can already do a lot with, for example, dice that you already have in the house, a pack of playing cards, regular playing cards, a bunch of stones even, or like the first games that were made were actually made out of small stones and pebbles. So that's something that you can already start using to create your first prototype. So spend no time on making it pretty. It's very, especially if you're an artist, it's very indeed tempting to start drawing, start making something really pretty. The chances are really high that you will have to throw it away after it's done, and when you start playing with it, because your rules will change or your game will also change a lot. So spend no time on making it pretty. Like draw something that's really basic, and when you're not good at art like me, then it's perfect. I don't need any time. I just draw a stick figure and then I'm done. And when you have a few parts, just play around with it, because with board games, one important aspect of how much fun it will be is how it will feel, how it will look. You need to get an idea of the size of the parts that you need. Like for example, for the game board, you can use an A4 game board, but you can also use A2 or maybe even bigger than that, and it will create completely different feelings. If you have a big board, it implies that it's going to be very complex. If you have a small board, it will imply very simple and quick. Once you have this physical and visual, you can already get a feeling of what direction your game will go towards. Or if you have a certain direction in your head, you can adjust the parts to give you that feeling as well. So do you want heavy pieces or do you want really light pieces, things like that. So that's what I mean with just play around with the parts. Just cut them out, find some parts to play with, throw them on the table. Maybe when you're with two people, move them around a bit and just play with it a bit. So you get a bit of a feeling about what kind of feeling you want to go for with the board game. And then I think the most difficult part of making the game is thinking about the turn order or play sequence. So this is the first step that you will take towards getting to the rules of the game and getting to the actual meat of how it will work. So you have to think about the turn order at some point. So is everyone playing simultaneously, or are you taking turns, or are you taking a turn, for example, with the Settlers of Catan? One player throws, everybody gets materials, but one player gets to build something. So that's a very interesting mechanic, because everyone is doing something, but there's one player who does a bit more than all the other players. So that's what I mean with the play sequence and the turn order. Once you have that in your head, in your mind, and you know how this is going to work, then you can think about, okay, so if it's my turn. What can I do? What are the actions I can take? Is it just moving around? Is it building? Is it destroying? Is it distributing? How many resources do I have? So do I get to get one action? Do I get to get one move or two moves or 5 moves? That's going to be the next steps. And when you have the game parts and you have the turn order, what we usually do here and what works really well is that the first player, he just takes a turn and he makes up what he's going to do during the turn. So for example, he says, well, we have this building game where we try to build a settlement, and with your settlement you have to collect materials, and so that's a general vague idea of the game, and the goal of the game is to build the biggest settlement. So the first player just starts playing around and he says, okay, this game part is my settler. I have this thing here. This is my settler, and I'm going to place it on the game board at this position. And from this position, it can do fishing because it's near water. So while you have these parts and when you're actually placing them and making up what you do as you go, the game starts to form a bit. And you get an idea about what kind of actions you can do, what kind of actions you can work with. And again, there's no bad move here or no bad thing. And it's not, okay if it's not balanced yet. You can just get a feeling of what kind of actions you can do as a player. What kind of things you can do. So that's what I mean with try to play one round. So this first play, he plays a settler and he's going to fish. That's the first round. And then you already know, okay, this is a game where I can fish. So I probably can collect fish and I can use the fish to feed my settlement or something like that. And then the next player will go and he will have the same approach, but then we'll do something different. So for example, he has another settler or maybe he has a warrior and he suddenly makes up that there are also warriors in this game. And he says, okay, I've got my warrior here, and I'm going to place it near your settler, near your fisher, and I'm going to kill him. So, very short game because now the settler is killed and his player has nothing else left, so that's too bad. But at least you know like 2 different actions that you can do as a player, or 3 different actions even. So that's what I mean with try to play around one round with these game parts and with this vague idea in your head. Do that a couple of times and you will get a feeling of how the game will work, what kind of actions you can take. And meanwhile, and this is where it's really handy to have a 3rd or 4th person in your group, have someone write down the rules. So ideally you have 2 or 3 players just playing and making it up everything as they go, and you have a 4th player who writes down what is happening, what kind of rules there are, what kind of actions there are, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, and things like that. When you are just 2 people, you have to take it a bit slower, so then you have to play and write it down at the same time. So it takes a bit more effort, but you can still do it that way. And then, when you continue doing this, the game will get formed and it will get more rules. To a point that it will have probably too many rules, and then you need to cut down again, or you need to balance. But at least it's a start, and you have something that you can build up from. Like I said, this is, I think, the most difficult part of making a game, because everything is possible, and you don't know what's going to work and what isn't going to work. And it's okay if it's no fun yet, and it's okay if you're feeling bored because you're just trying to find the fun in the game. But as soon as you have a feeling of, oh wow, I like what just happened. So for example, I really liked it that this warrior killed my settler. Then write that down. I think, okay, this is something fun that you can do. You can kill settlers. So we need to have that in a game in some way or another. And that way you will get a list of things that you want to keep, and like the things that aren't fun, you just forget, and you just don't write down, or you do nothing with it, or you get it out of the game later. So that is, in short, how to start building a board game. Are there any questions about it?